The Ontario government is tabling new legislation that requires employers to include the wages or salaries on every job posting. So the government says employers are going to have to inform job candidates when they're using AI in the hiring process. They claim this is going to help reduce biases and pay inequities across different demographic groups, and it's going to help close the gender pay gap. Catherine Scott is the senior economist at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. She studies gender pay gap and Canadian economic policies. Great to have you on the show this morning.
Thanks so much, Anne-Marie. Lovely to be here.
Explain for us a little bit more how transparency policies like this will help to reduce the pay gap between genders.
For sure. The pay transparency move by the government, it's an excellent first step, part of a number of types of opportunities and policies governments can bring in to help level the playing field in the labor market. Certainly your listeners will be well aware of the gender pay gap. It depends on the measure you use. Realistically, women are typically paid annually about 72 cents on the dollar. And of course, much larger gap for folks in communities that faced other challenges, racialized women, Indigenous women, and the like, people with disabilities. So pay transparency tools are being introduced in Canada and around the world to help, ensure that folks have information about the job, other things they can be doing too. But it's, again, as I said, to help level the playing field between employers and employees.
We spoke with you earlier this year to talk about how BC was doing a similar policy, and data from StatsCan shows that although the national gender pay gap is narrowing, this is still bad news. Women are still earning 12% less than men in 2022. Yeah. So what are other provinces doing to kind of combat this pay inequity?
Well, it all starts with a really strong pay equity legislation. Ontario has pay equity legislation on the books as well. Federal government, folks will remember, introduced new pay equity legislation federally. You see it in many provinces as well. These new pay transparency tools are newer. You've got in Canada right now, Newfoundland, BC's regime just came into effect, Prince Edward Island, and around EU and the like. These laws require, in this case, publishing information about wages and job advertisements. Actually, an earlier act that the former Liberal government in Ontario actually included other measures, such as prohibiting employers from retaliating against employees that shared information about wages, or requiring as well that, for instance, in an interview situation, employers couldn't ask a potential applicant, what were you paid before? Mm-hmm. These types of things, of course, ensure, we have good research on this. It creates, people tend to lowball it. Women in particular don't negotiate good deals. So being upfront in the very instance, right from the get-go about what this job is, being paid, mm-hmm. Same for everybody. It really does help bring equity to the job market.
Something that also deserves a closer look is the fact that employers are supposed to now mention when they're using AI in the hiring practices. How does that change the game for people?
Well, this is an evolving field, and I think the government's right, certainly looking at the estimates, the number of employers that actually talk about using AI in the hiring process, whether that's to screen or to find out more information. Obviously, there are huge privacy concerns about how the data is collected. So this would seem to be a first step in trying to bring in other regulations. I mean, I would say a marginal or minimal step. Folks will have that information, whether that would deter someone from actually applying for a job because it was, AI was being used in the application process, but it's an acknowledgement that these are powerful tools. In fact, we have a larger conversation about the use of AI in Canada and around the world. So this is a good first step, and hopefully the minister indicated they would bring in other regulations that were needed to ensure that people aren't disadvantaged. Because we know that AI has a history of systemic bias, that it's machine, these types of biases are built in. And so getting on top of that is a really important thing.
And good for us to catch up to other countries who already have this in place. Catherine Scott, great to talk to you again.
Thanks so much, Anne-Marie.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.